think it's on now. Yeah.
Are we on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, ladies, great evening, everybody. If you guys can go ahead and click like and share to your platforms for your viewers to be able to participate. Good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello.
Hey.
There we go.
All right.
Is it public? It's public, right?
Yes, sir. It's public.
Okay.
Everybody should be able to share. Yeah, we're on. Were you guys able to share it to your platforms?
Yeah.
They should all have notifications saying that they can do it then.
Yeah, and everybody was tagged in it, so you guys should be able to share it to your platforms.
Okay, got it.
Y'all good to go? Everybody got it?
Right.
Yes.
Now, if I could just get if my technology can just act right, that would be wonderful.
All right, mine going a little slow, but we good on one.
Yeah, I don't know what the problem is. It's been fine all day. Now I want to act crazy. How convenient.
Network must be good.
How convenient, right? So, anywho, I'm not even gonna try to fool with it right now because it's not being gracious to me at all. Good evening, everybody. Welcome.
All right. Good to be
How's
here.
everybody doing?
Great.
We're
Good
doing
evening,
Everybody doing
everyone.
good? Everybody good? Everybody live? Everybody well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody blessed and highly flavored?
Like it to us, even.
Highly flavored. You guys, what we're going to do first is we're going to do what we always do. We always start with acknowledging our creator by having a quick word of prayer, and then we're going to dive right into tonight's show. You guys, that's okay with everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Pastor Cece, can you
That's
lead us in a
fine.
word of prayer?
Sure. Let's bow together. Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for this opportunity to share the wisdom of the Lord that you have given us, to share our stories, to inquire of one another of the things that we know that have been healthy for us in recovering areas of our lives. God, we thank you for our fathers. We thank you mostly for this venue that Precious has put together for us to share our thoughts, our words, and our experiences. Thank you, Lord, that you lead us by your Spirit. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. All right, now, well, I think somebody didn't get saved on tonight from that prayer, Cece. All right now. So I'm gonna read our narrative, and we have a special segment tonight, and Mr. Dixon is going to be leading the charge on this evening. So you guys, I'm gonna give you a fair warning. If for some reason Mr. Dixon gets out of control, I don't know what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pray again.
I don't know what we're gonna do. I think we have to pray again. So here it is. Here's the narrative. I'm gonna read it real quick. While any man can produce a child, there is so much more to the critical, important role that a father plays in a child's life. Fathers are important to the emotional well-being of a child. They're also great caregivers and disciplinarians, which are also serious components to a child's rearing and development. Dads also influence how we view relationships with the opposite sex and the decision that we make with choosing our purposed person. Another great thing that dads do is validate their daughters. Our father is the first man we ever love, respect, honor, and look up to. For many of us, our fathers have been our best friends, our greatest heroes, and our forever advocates. This week is dedicated to fathers, father figures, and the like, that the men that have helped mold us into who we are now. We are here with some awesome ladies as they share the stories about the honorable men that have graced the stage of their lives. Mr. Dixon, we turn it over to you, sir.
All right. Well, okay, this is how we're gonna do this on tonight. I'm gonna throw some just questions at you all. We'll start. It'll be very simple, and then we'll progress on. And
Oh boy,
complicated as time goes on. All right.
Oh.
So Miss P. Coffee, we shall start with you on tonight.
No. Oh.
Yes. Yeah.
I just knew you was gonna get D in the chair first.
So this will be real quick. The first round is pretty much going to just say from off the top of everyone's off the top of your head. First things first is starting with you, P. Coffee. Just ramble off something that you feel the presence of your dad in your life has helped you.
Oh, wow. The presence of my dad in my life has helped me to maintain respect for Black men.
Mm. All right. All right, Miss D.
Hey, Mr. Dixon, I
Yeah.
didn't grow up with a father in my home.
Oh, all
My
right.
father was killed in a car accident when I was 4 months old.
Wow. Okay.
I have no, obviously I have no
Yes. Yes.
memory of
Yes.
my father.
Okay. Okay.
So
All right.
I grew up in a single parent home with my mom. She never remarried.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. All right. Well, I got something
But
special for you. I got something
she has
special
some
for
father
her later
figure.
on.
But
Yeah.
Special.
she does have some father
That's
figure
Well,
stories to tell for
on the
sure.
next round, she can definitely attribute. All right, Miss
Absolutely.
Okay.
Victoria.
yes.
Yes.
Oh wow. The presence of my father in my life. He was a great influencer. His
Mm,
opinion mattered a whole lot to me. I
awesome.
well, maybe I'll save that for later, but that's the
Okay.
first part.
Okay. His
Yeah, he was a
opinion
great
matters.
influencer.
Great. All right. All right. Uh-oh, Miss Cece. Come on,
You're
Cece.
so special. To be honest with you, I had the privilege of having three dads.
Mm.
What kind of
I had
ministry
my
you got?
biological. Mind your business, little girl. No,
What kind of
no, really.
ministry?
My mom never married my father. I met my father when I was 12, but I had a stepfather after who is currently still married to my mom. But I had my brother's father, who is 2 years younger. My brother's 2 years younger than me, so I had three fathers. But my dad helped me set the standard in what I wanted in a mate. Even though
Mm.
I had three dads in my actively engaged in my life, which are still three dads alive, and they still have a great relationship with me. I talk to all three of them about things. They actually sit to the table together. The three of them, they eat together. When we have family
Mm.
issues or something comes up, we can come to the family table as one because their influence matters as men in our house. We highly esteem men in my culture, in my family. So when like if a death happens, it's not, just the man who my mom's married to. It's the fact that if it's a relative on my brother's side, then his dad and my stepdad are there. And of course, because I was raised by him, my dad would be there to console. So it's never any animosity among the three because they recognize their roles as dad. But my dad influences the standard that I have for men.
Nice. All right. So.
I think she cheating, Mr.
Yeah.
Dixon. I think she cheating because every question you ask, she gonna have three different stories. I don't think you got.
No, I ain't gonna do that. I just wanted to put that in now
I'm just
because
playing.
it's only
I'm
gonna
just
be
playing.
applicable to my dad. My daddy is
so
my
I'm just
so
my
so
playing.
daddy's brother.
so I'll throw this special caveat question by way of D, since her situation is different from everyone else's. So D, seeing as though um, we heard the side of those who how they feel as though how his presence affected their lives. How do you feel his absence affected yours? His absence in an unfortunate way, not absence as
Mm.
in deadbeat, but his absence as in he couldn't be there.
Absolutely. I think that affected me. Well, for a long time, I really didn't acknowledge it. When people would say, "How does it feel not having a dad?" I would kind of blow them out because most people knew that he wasn't a deadbeat dad, that he was deceased, and people would ask me about it, and I would say, "Well, you can never miss what you never had," and I would kind of blow them
Mm,
off. For a long time, I really
Mhm.
didn't realize the impact of not having a father in the home or even visualizing a father because I knew when I grew up, there were a lot
yes.
of my friends who had fathers in the home or who had fathers. Their parents were divorced and their fathers lived somewhere else, but at least they could
Could
sometimes.
recollect something. Yeah, they can. Yeah.
I didn't have anybody to relate to. I didn't know
Mm,
anybody in my situation. So I kind of, for a long time, especially as a young child, I just kind of blew it off because I didn't know how to verbalize how I felt because I really
right.
didn't know how I felt.
Right. Right.
Wow.
Wow. Interesting. So here's a quick interesting fact based off of what Dee has just mentioned. From I don't think the man cave guys probably made to say something to me, but let me just say this. I'll throw this one out there. Women don't realize how evident the absence of a male presence in their lives looks to us. From a male perspective, there is something about when you see a woman and she has had for the most part, and let's just say maybe not all women have had their mom and dad was married for 50 years and then until one of them passed away. In some cases people were married for 10 years. Maybe dad was around for a little while and he left for a little president and he left. But the thing is, we can look at women and you can tell when a woman has a certain ceiling, as in SEAL, ceiling about her. And that ceiling comes from the presence of her dad. When the dad is not there, there is a certain unraveling of a presence that a woman has. It doesn't matter how put together she is. You can look through them and see it, that he has not been there to supplement in some way or another. So it kind of leaves them, they can be beautiful, they can be whatever. But then when you talk to them, you'll kind of hear these missing pieces that normally come from an assurance that a man brings to a woman.
I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah. And so and unfortunately, sometimes, well, let's just say in most cases, if in the wrong hands, this is where the beginning of the exploitation comes in, and the negative exploitation, and the woman gets, and a lot of times when men notice this presence isn't there, a lot of times they'll try to booby trap. In some cases, if they don't mean you any harm, and they'll try to mimic this presence, like in the form of a lover. But it's sort of like, well, she didn't know she didn't have a dad, so I teach her this all the time, like he's instilling these things in you in his absence. So this happens kind of commonly.
Mm-hmm. Very common. That's that tainted, twisted mentality of controlling somebody.
Yeah, because see, when guys, when let's just say if we're younger, and let's just say I'm coming to your house, Carrie, I'm like, that's my girlfriend, Carrie. I'm going to Carrie's house, and if I meet that door, and he's like, good to see you, young man, it changes the man's trajectory right there, because the man is the first line of defense. And he's like, oh, she got a father, so I got to kind of change my approach, because I may not be able to get away with some things that I could if it was just a woman answering the door and let me see her daughter. It's a different situation. So it's for men, that whole first line of defense is important to see. Okay, so next thing.
Dixon, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's good information that you brought up, because I don't think a lot of us really realize how that could bring harm to us. Even as older, more mature women, we still could be subjected to that same,
because it doesn't go anywhere.
Same adversity, it doesn't go away.
Yeah, because if you haven't had his presence in whatever form, it doesn't go away. It doesn't matter how old you are, because that's why a lot of us, whether it be a man or a woman, a lot of us become grown kids, so to speak, because we haven't necessarily had that interaction, and so we're left always thirsting for it. So to speak, we're looking for that to come into our life. And so a lot of times what we do, we accept the trade-off. We accept the trade-off of the male figure in our life, even though he's our quote-unquote man or husband, but there's a certain extra responsibility that we're looking for from him that, unfortunately, in some cases, it drives folks to divorce, because the man is not willing to love you in duality. He's not trying to say, I'm going to be your man, but then I got to turn around and be your father and be an example too. It's too much. You understand what I'm saying?
Or you find one that wants that father role, and then the father role becomes more than the husband role.
Correct. And now it's awkward, and now you getting yelled at and controlled all the time, and you just like, this is off balance. It's not right here.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff. That's very good stuff.
Yeah. So, all right. So let me ask you all this. Assuming most of you either have been married or not married, or whatever the case, or single, divorced, what have you found yourself when you were For those of you that may have had your fathers in your lives in that on that level, have you found yourselves when you were looking for a mate, or were you looking for someone father-like? Was his influence that strong on you to look for a man that maybe had characteristics like him, or was it so? Well, as long as he went to church like my dad, that's all. It's good enough for me. You know what I'm saying? We'll start with you, Cece. I can see you looking. You're ready to go. Go ahead.
No, when I said before that my dad says the same, my dad is a hardworking, he's saved, he loves kids, he
Right.
loves my stepmom who loves me. My dad is the family man. He's also he's a community man, he's a public figure, he's diverse, but he's
Yeah.
down to earth. So with me and my spectrum, for one, I find myself having some of the feminine aspects of his character, but I also look for a mate who can be multifaceted, multi-gifted, multi-talented,
Gotcha.
because I'm subject to be in any arena. I could go from hanging out with my girl Precious and kicking
Yeah.
it to being in a pulpit sitting next to you as a dignitary.
I
So
understand.
for me, my dad's influence is I don't want nobody just like my daddy.
Okay. All right.
Because the minute they shift gears and start acting like my daddy, I'm like, hold up.
You're
I
not
need
my
a
father.
father.
Yeah.
I need a
Right.
boy.
You ain't my daddy.
Right.
I ain't none of your daughter. And,
Right.
I'll say that.
Right.
I don't
Right.
need a father. I have a great dad.
Right.
I need someone who can be as stable as my dad.
Got you. Okay. Good stuff. All right, Victoria.
That's good.
Wow. Yeah. I always look for someone because my dad he was a businessman. He had his own business. He was a master tailor. He was a musician. He had his own band. He was an assistant pastor. So I do
Wow.
look for those characteristics.
Yeah.
I am looking for stability. I need you to be your own man, be your own person, and don't be afraid of who you
Yeah.
are, and
Okay.
don't be intimidated, by what I'm looking for. I need you to just be strong. Just be
Okay.
who you are.
Wow. Okay. Now I'm gonna segue right there when she said that. Victoria's always that guest that gets my wheels turning. Anyway, so listen. Here's the thing. Sometimes the man being strong is him being vulnerable, which may not appear strong to you. You understand what I'm saying? Sometimes I
Yes.
think we miss it because sometimes we think strong is, oh, I better not ever see you cry, or in a weak moment, or I better not see you looking like you can't handle the situation, or we're gonna have a problem. I mean, sometimes for a man, him being strong is him being willing to disrobe in front of you.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Exactly.
you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Sometimes it comes like
Yes,
that.
exactly.
And I guess strip down and be vulnerable and say, listen, baby, I'm having a problem with this, and I may need your help. And you may be like,
Yes.
my daddy would never say it if my mother, but you got to be patient because he may be a different type of man. You understand what I'm saying?
Right,
Doesn't mean
right,
he's not
right,
strong.
yes.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and I agree with you on that because I want you to be able to be transparent with me.
Right.
You know,
Right.
I think most of us, we probably grew up hearing
Yeah.
that phrase, real men don't cry. But I'm
Correct.
telling you, real
They
men
do
do
cry.
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 If
Absolutely
they
right.
don't,
I want to
they gonna hit
know that
something.
there's that
They
side
gonna
of
hit
you.
Is that right?
My
Yeah.
Lord. If they don't
Right.
cry, they gonna hit something.
All right. So Miss P Coffee. All right. Let's go on.
Sir.
Yeah.
Gosh. Man. Whew. I just have to kind of piggyback off the vulnerable thing that you just mentioned because and I'm gonna try not to cry because I don't want to mess up my cuteness tonight.
Tonight.
Oh, Lord.
But
Stay cute. Stay cute. Stay cute. Stay cute.
I know, right? Here's the thing about dads that I think about. I think dads project this superheroism kind of towards their daughters,
Right.
where we almost feel like they're invincible in a sense, and it kind of challenges us when we start being positioned for a man to find us, that we're looking for this superhuman kind of in a sense. Man, he rescued us. He did this. He did that. He did this. My dad survived 66 surgeries in one eye.
Wow.
And just watching him survive that type of
Trauma.
that type of trauma, I was like, man, nobody trumps my daddy. You know,
Wow.
that kind of thing, right? Even though I saw him being vulnerable, I saw him triumph over something
Mhm.
so tragic, you know.
Mm.
Watching him get his theology degree, getting his doctorate degree and all this stuff, and he's blind, and seeing him overcome this and overcome that. So my expectations of this guy in my brain was like, he's got to be superhuman. He's got to be able to overcome this, do that, and that. And it kind of put men in a light that was shining brighter than they could. You understand what I'm
Okay.
saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So instead, it was
Mhm.
making me douse the light that they did have.
Okay.
Yeah.
Instead of
Wow.
saying, okay, this is the amount of light this guy has.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I had to relearn when I got older and became an adult that my dad is one person. He's not everybody. He's just one individual with these group of experiences. But that doesn't mean that every man is going to, you know,
Act like
do
him.
this and do
Yeah.
that and do
Right.
that. I can't. I mean, I
Mhm.
don't. I can't. A guy that don't have a doctorate degree, that has nothing to do with his qualities or his ability
Mhm.
to be a great mate and things of that nature. The list goes on and on. But I had to catch myself and stop judging people.
There we go.
Your, your phone. You got a little choppy. You said I had to defend myself and stop judging people. That's where you stopped.
Oh, I said I had to stop judging men through the lenses that I had of my father.
Okay.
Mhm.
And allow a man the opportunity to show me who he was without
Okay.
trying to put him in this, trying to force him to be somebody that he could not be to me, period.
Wow. Wow.
I
Interesting.
think myself, with the absence of a father, I
Right.
think I kind of did the same thing.
Right.
I
Yeah,
had I had high expectations without knowing I had high expectations.
right,
Mm.
right.
I mean, I had some male role models. I had awesome uncles,
Okay.
great uncles. I
Okay.
had some wonderful men in my church that
Right.
were awesome men that treated me kind and treated my mom kind, and my uncles would look after my mom, not daily, but overall. So I looked up to these men in the absence of my father. They were great men. I have no horror stories, but I didn't live in the house with those men.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
So,
right.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I saw the wonderfulness
Mhm.
of these
That's
men,
right. That's
Right.
right.
but I would visit my auntie and uncles, summers sometimes, but I didn't live
Yeah.
in the house with them. So I set
Right.
my expectations up
Uh-huh.
with the Deacons and my uncles,
Yeah.
but that was just for the time that I saw them.
Yeah.
So, that may have skewed things a bit for myself as well.
Right.
And you know what,
Because
D, just to
Mine
piggyback
were
off you
from
for
a
one
different
hot second,
perspective.
just one hot second. When you just said that, it reminded me of something my mom told us when we were younger. We was just dad worshipers. My mother said, "You guys do not know the man that I know."
mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
she dropped it
True.
after
Yeah.
that. And it wasn't until I became a woman that I understood exactly what she meant. When I had my own family, my
Mhm.
own mate,
Mm-hmm.
when I
She
had
just
my
meant,
own family, my own mate, it was like,
Mhm.
whoa, this is an eye opener.
Yeah.
This is not the
yeah,
person that the public
Mhm.
sees. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Even
yeah,
though he wasn't like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but what happens behind closed doors is not what public views
right.
at
Absolutely.
all.
Yeah.
That's true.
Mm-mm.
Well, I think the irony
Yeah,
there
I
is
agree with you on that one.
okay. Yeah. The irony there is that's what covering one another is all about.
Right,
Is the
Yeah.
right.
things that you see no one
Yeah.
else is supposed to see. That's what
Yes.
that's really is
Mhm.
about. Yeah.
Right.
I had a different
That's
experience
why
though.
my mama dropped it. Because my mother told me years later, she said, I did not want to taint the view that y'all had of y'all father. I didn't want to destroy that image in your
Yes.
mind
Mhm.
by making you
Right.
privy to his flaws. But at the same
Yes.
time, I
Right.
wanted to leave enough information in your brain for you to consider that your dad is not as perfect as you quote unquote think he is. So she
Mm.
never
Yes.
tainted our
Mhm.
view on him, but
Mhm.
she left something on our mind and in our hearts to say, hey,
Mhm. Mhm.
your daddy is a human, honey.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad
I
you
had
all
a
brought that
different
up
experience.
because Charles, I was expecting and wondering if you would want to go down that road of
Yeah.
the duality of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
personality and the person
Right.
Absolutely.
of your dad. I didn't
Right.
Absolutely.
see that part as a little girl, but as I became a teenager, a young woman in my 20s, I saw a different side of
Of
my
course.
dad that
Mhm.
I didn't
Of
see
course.
growing up. You
Yeah.
know, he was
Yeah.
still forever my dad. I'm
Yeah.
still always, a daddy's
Right.
girl, but it just
Right.
allowed me to see a different side of him. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
what's
Because
going on?
because
Yeah.
once you more likely once you're a teenager and you say you're like around 20 some 21-year old, you're more conscious. So
Right.
you know
Yes.
what
Right.
you really clearly know what shady and right and wrong looks like without being
Right.
a little
Right.
girl saying,
Hmm.
buy me something, daddy. That's not gonna get it this time. Even if he did buy you something, you still know you did something wrong. You're more coherent
Absolutely.
about
Hmm.
it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
CC,
Absolutely.
Yes.
I
I know
was
you were
saying
saying
that
something.
I had a different experience. When I met my dad, I met my dad, my biological dad, at church. I was
Okay.
singing, and this man was at the door, and he was losing it. He was crying, and I was like, "Gosh, I'm really anointed today, boy. I'm just saying." But me and my brother and I are practical jokers.
Okay.
My youngest brother, Felix, and we got home. We were joking around about the man crying in the back. He was all tore up. You really threw down, 'cause, my brother was acting like a preacher. So we was joking, and we noticed that when we got home, my mom, my stepdad, and my grandfather went in the kitchen to talk. Well, the way our house is made is a big house. The doors closed, and we was like, "Uh oh, somebody in trouble." So I thought I was in trouble for being a practical
Something you
joker.
did something. Okay. All right.
And yeah, because he was cracking on a dude crying. Well, the doorbell rung, and my mama screamed out, "Carrie, answer the door." I answered the door. It was the crying man. And I was like, "Hey,
Mm.
how you doing?" So I really thought I was in trouble. I thought I was going to get a beating. And he went in, he said, "Where's your mom?" I said, "She's in the kitchen." He went in the kitchen, and they shut the door behind him. I said, "Well, he must be in trouble because I ain't do nothing." So at this point, my brother like, "You going to get it." So they called me in the kitchen and summons me to the table, which is what I do now, have family meetings,
Okay.
and said, "We need to talk to you." And I thought
Mm,
they was going to make me apologize for cracking on.
mm,
And they instead said, "This is your father."
wow.
And
Mm.
I was relieved because I thought I was going to get a whooping, but I also was kind of shocked. But I met my dad vulnerable. And even
Mm,
in looking at me, he cried again. I met Clark Kent first.
mm,
And my dad became my hero because he was vulnerable in my presence.
Mhm.
yeah.
Mm.
He would sneak and give my mom money to take care of us, even when she was married to another man. He would give it to my aunt and she would give it to my mom.
Wow.
Well,
Mm.
as an adult, when things got rough for me when I went through divorce, the first person I wanted to call was my dad, not my mom or my grandmama. And matter of fact, my grandmother passed in '96. Yeah, when I went on deployment, but that's irrelevant. But my dad, because I met him in a vulnerable place, when I need real advice about real life issues, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
employment, because I even called him when I was thinking about getting out of the Navy. And I said,
Mm.
"Daddy, I want to get out of the Navy." He asked me why. And my dad would take me to court
Mm-hmm.
and question me on a level that he would make me own my emotions, my
Right.
decision making. He never made decisions for me. But I
Right.
met Clark Kent first. So
Okay.
I knew that when I was weak, I could take my weakness to him.
Okay.
Mhm.
And when I needed something, I was always taught to be proud. So I didn't ask him for nothing. So he would come to
Right.
me and say, "Carrie, I need to talk to you. What is going on?"
Okay.
And I would have to feel my gut. So, like I said, my experience was I didn't meet the superhero first. I came to know the superhero
Mm-hmm.
because when things did come up in life, he was the one that saved the day. Because had I not met him, I'd have never met none of y'all. Because I
Wow.
stayed in the military based on a conversation with my dad. Now, my mama, she was like, "Get out. They driving you crazy. They making your nerves bad." My grandma was like, "Child, I'm praying." But,
Right.
overall, my father questioned me in the line of questioning that made me own my emotions, take responsibility for my decision making, be conscious that there is a consequence, be it good or bad, for your decision.
Mm.
So my dad being vulnerable in front of me made me confident to know the difference between somebody being candid and open in their, conversation with me versus someone I can sense shade and
Yeah.
you know how it is when people
Yeah.
faking and they
Yeah.
just trying to get
Right.
because
Right.
you got a panel full of fine women tonight. We all look good. So it
Yeah.
ain't like we getting approached by Boo Boo the Fool.
Right.
And the
Yeah.
thing is,
Yeah.
because I know I tell people all the time, when I meet a guy, I'm almost 50 years old, and I
Mm-hmm.
tell them in a minute, "I want you to meet my dad." And their response in whether or not they want to meet my dad tells me a lot about their character. Because if you can't meet the man who has been king in my life, what you gonna do?
Wow.
You know, I'm questioning your motive. I'm trying to discern, who are you to me? I don't need you to be my father, but I need you to be strong and vulnerable at the right time.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Miss D.
Yes.
All right. Question for you. I remember you said that you said that you had your I guess what you said, you had a high bar when you were looking, I guess when you were entertaining or dating or whatever have you in the past in your life. So how do you think this came about for you? Was it because of his absence and you really didn't know, because you didn't know what to look for, you said, I'm gonna get this because I think I'm great and I'm a fabulous woman. This is what I deserve and I'm gonna start the bar here. Is that kind of how you went at it?
That's pretty much how it
Yeah.
was, because I did have some really good men in my life on the exterior, and because I did think, and my mama, I had a great mama. She was my mama, but she's still alive. My mom's 94.
Oh.
Very strong woman, very tough woman, and my mom always taught me from, as far as I can remember, that you are not better than anybody else, but
Okay.
nobody is better than you. So I always felt that way. And I think Cece said something like, I would always say, I can sit down and eat a sandwich with a homeless person and be fine, but I can also sit in the White House with the president, not this one, and feel just as
My Lord.
Oh, I'll sit with that joker. You might run me off, but I'll sit down.
I love it.
But I always had high expectations, and looking back, I think that was probably unfair. I do. I think that was unfair. Not that I was this mean witch or anything like that. I never felt entitled. I don't mean that. But I did and I think for a while that's why I dated older fellas. You know,
Okay.
not that I was not old,
I know
older
what you
than me.
mean.
I never
You're a
dated
sugar
anyone
daddy girl.
You're like 75 or something? No, I'm just kidding. No. I got some change for you. No, wait.
I think now not real old, but I think because I felt like some guys my
missing.
age were
Yeah. Like something was
childish.
missing. Yeah.
Something was missing.
Right.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Because what you were trying to do is you wanted a little bit of youth to kind of satisfy where you were, but you wanted a little bit of maturity to satisfy what you didn't have. You understand what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, break it on down, Dr. Dixon. All right now.
Oh, Lord. So, but here I'm gonna throw you all a curveball.
Uh-oh.
I think
Y'all catch it now.
I think this way. I feel like being a father myself, I feel like we as men, we try to, we want to be the Superman to the kids, right? And so we don't want them to see any flaws, anything wrong. You kind of fuss at your wife if you're married. Don't you tell that girl that. Don't you hush. She don't need to know this. But I think as long as it's there is a such thing as a healthy dysfunction.
Right.
And sometimes I'm not talking about somebody slapping your mother or some crazy abuse story, but I think it's good for a woman to see her father's flawed. It's good because because setting your daughter up. I have over the years I have dated women who have had quote unquote the perfect father. He didn't do nothing. Every time she had an issue, he came through. He did this. He did all of these things. And so what the result is this woman who's existing. She wants to date. She wants to get married. But if you don't meet dad's bar, she remains where she is. And she ends up dating all these people, but she has no real substance because she's looking for dad and not the fairness of a real regular person. And so I think men can set the woman up because you could have the woman so used to being comfortable by the way dad treated them, which is what men do. We try to be the spoiler, but the dysfunction in that is the other guy, the unsuspecting man that she's going to run into out in the street, he's not her dad. he doesn't have that super agape love for her, that bond,
Right.
blood bond. He just a guy that thinks she's cute. He may want to love her, but he don't have the kind of conviction love like the father. And so
Right.
what
Yes.
she's looking for is dysfunctional because she wants something that only a father can provide from a man that's not your father. You understand what I'm saying? So
Right.
it gets
Yes.
it gets a little dysfunctional. So I think if women are able to see
Mhm.
some trouble, have a glimpse. It's good to have some trouble of the dysfunction because it lets you know, okay, my dad loves me, he protects me, but he's showing me that men are not perfect early. You don't have to find out by cause and effect later. You're seeing early that they're not perfect. You understand what I'm saying? So it
Yes.
And
depends
let
on
me
what you
tell
take
you,
from
I didn't
that.
find it. Let me tell you, when I found out,
Yes.
Lord have mercy. When I, oof,
Yeah.
oh man, I talked to my dad before we did this show, and man, let me tell you, something happened in our family that was so traumatizing to
Okay.
me as my father's daughter.
Okay.
Man, when I tell you it took the wind out of my sail. And
Okay.
I got to a point where I just despised my dad for a season in my life. I didn't want nothing to
Mm.
do with him. I didn't want to talk to him. I mean, when I found out my dad was human and my dad,
Mm.
something had transpired and it was my daddy, the bishop, that did this, it wasn't a hill to die on, but in my mind it was. You
Yeah.
understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when we went through that
Mhm.
trying time in our family, I can remember my dad calling me. Man, I'm gonna try not to cry. My dad called me and he was
Let it
like,
out, girl.
man, he said, Precious, he said, you are my firstborn daughter. And he
Mm.
said, if I don't get your forgiveness, I can't keep doing this. And he was like,
Mm.
I need you to forgive me because you're my firstborn daughter. He was
Mm.
like, you are the one that was there when I
Mhm.
could see.
Mm.
Your sisters didn't experience me being sighted. You was there running down the street with me. You saw me laying in your mother's arms, vomiting profuse, and you saw me go through all this stuff. And he
Right.
was
Wow.
like, I'm the same man now as I was then. I need you to forgive me. I need you to let
Right.
it go. And
Right.
my dad, when he was crying, it just, I mean, it messed me up because I was so angry, but so
Yeah.
vulnerable in the same exact moment. It was
Right.
like in the same moment I wanted to hate him, but I couldn't. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It
Right.
was like just realizing that my father was just a person in that moment. Not even my
Right.
dad. I couldn't even look at
Right.
him as my dad. I had to look at him as a man, just a regular
Mm.
old man. And I sat
Yes.
there and I said, you know what, Dad? I said, I will never, ever uncover what happened. I'll never
Mm.
tell nobody. But at the same time, I said, you have to promise me that you will never, ever make this same mistake again. And from that day to this one, my dad has never made that same mistake twice.
Mm.
My dad was so committed to gaining me back in that same space. And now,
Mm.
man, I'm telling you, I love my dad. So if somebody was gonna shoot my dad, I would take the bullet for him. That's just how
Mm.
much I love my father. Because
Mm.
just in that moment, for him to be honest and transparent enough to say, I made a mistake.
Mhm.
Please forgive me. That
Mhm.
was in that moment I respected men like I've never respected men before.
Mm.
Because when a man comes to you and says, I'm wrong, I made a mistake, I made a bad
Mhm.
choice, when
Yeah.
he can
Yeah.
come to you and say that, it does
Mhm.
something to you. If
Mhm.
you
It
got any
does.
kind of heart, it does something
Yeah.
to you. And it will literally soften you. It will soften you up like you've never seen before. If
Right.
you
When I
have
went
any
through
kind of
something
heart.
that's similar, I went through that with learning
Yes.
how my mom and dad got together, um, learning how many times my dad has been married and he
Mhm.
never married my mom.
Mm.
Um, we had a
Mm.
conversation because my sister Pam, who is 10 years older than me, looks exactly like me, except she's
Mhm.
light with freckles.
Mhm.
And I'm an
Mm.
inch taller than her. And when we first met, the first thing was, oh, she looked just like daddy. But as we sat down to the table as a family to discuss some adult matters, my dad asked me, he didn't ask for my forgiveness. He said,
Mm.
I need you not to hold a grudge in an area that does not affect your life. And I
Mm.
said, Dad,
Mm.
I forgave you and I love you in spite of that, because that's why I look at men through the lenses that I do, and I'm very forgiving because of what I know my dad has done.
Mm.
I know how I was conceived. I know what happened after me. I even know what
Mm.
happened after I met him.
Mm.
So we're
Mm.
looking at a dynamic of some people, even women, the mothers in this picture, because there are three women just like there are three daddies.
Mm.
Mhm.
I look at the scenario of how broad my family is, and all of us are forgiving for one reason. We're not going to allow society to dictate how we handle each other as human beings,
Mhm.
because the Bible teaches us that all have sinned, not y'all have sinned, and
Right.
come
Mhm.
short of God's glory.
Right.
And as a
Right.
culture,
Right.
if we learn to be more forgiving of the failures of our fathers, that we learned a
Yes.
song in the military called "The Faith of Our Fathers," and we
Mhm.
sung it often, especially during Father's Day and men's holidays or whatever. But the faith of our fathers is taught, but the failures of our fathers is embraced in my family, because we don't hold that grudge against them. Because if you're going to judge somebody for their sins that had nothing to do with you, then what do you expect to happen to you when you mess up?
All
And
right.
as a
Right.
girl child, I'm the baby girl. I
Mm.
have, I'm the baby girl of my daddy's children, all of them. I
Okay.
have 13 brothers and 4 sisters,
My Lord.
and there's a creation of people that look like us. You know us when you see us, because we all shaped the same and we all got the same them
Features.
unsaved faces. And when I look at how, when we had that conversation about how I came to be my daddy's child, because they introduced me at 12, but at 15 was when I found out the details.
My Lord.
Mm.
And my mama was not perfect. My daddy was not perfect. Even who he's married to now, the woman he's married to now looks like my mama.
Mm.
But
Oh boy.
there are some dynamics with his ex-wife and the woman he's married to now. So we don't have a right to judge that.
Right.
So we teach our children, you have to forgive the sins that were not against you.
Mm.
Mhm.
Forgive those trespasses of those who
Mhm.
trespass against you and the ones who don't, because it's connected to our culture. And if we look at who we are as a people and stop being so judgmental, that's our problem.
Yeah. Very much.
Girls can be judgmental when they use too much of who their father is to gauge on what a
Right.
man is for.
That's
Right.
true. That's
Very
true.
much so.
You
Very
start
true.
creating these unrealistic expectations, and then the dude who really like you run him off because you're trying to turn
Right.
him into your daddy
Right.
Correct.
or the daddy you never had.
Right.
Correct.
Because
Right.
there was a period of my life when I didn't have none of them. When I left for the military, the first 5 years, I ain't have neither one of them.
Mm.
And I didn't call them neither. I was traveling and doing stuff. I was in places that the military took me. I ain't had time for no family
Right.
other than my son. So I had to keep the eyes of my understanding open, and I had to gauge my need for a mate on
Mhm.
the Bible, my experiences, and my father, with a plethora of understanding, so that I wouldn't forsake my own desires. We still have desires. And
Mhm.
I still say I want a man as good as my dad, but I don't want my
Oh,
daddy.
right.
Right. Right.
Good stuff. So here's another twist.
Mr. Dixon, I just want you to let Bruce know that he's forbidden from the chat. He
Huh?
made a comment. And
Oh.
Has been hereby forbidden from the chat. He
I
made a
see him
comment
acting
and
up.
said, "Y'all have these great dads. I need to hear some dysfunctional. I hate his blank 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 type of stories."
Yeah. Right.
Let
Right.
Bruce
So
know he is no longer accepted in the
right.
chat.
That's why he ain't on tonight.
Right. So here's the key. All right. So I'm sure a lot of men in the world today would like to ask this question based off of what we see today. All right. How many of you that have had your dads, those of you that had your dads in your house with you, even though he was there physically, was he seen as a leader versus your mother? Like when I say that this is a
My
pivotal
mama was
question
boss as hell.
because sometimes you might have a dad there, but he's overshadowed by the stronger presence of the mother, and he may be looked at as in today's society, oh, he's kind of soft. You understand what I'm saying? He's a nice man, but he's soft. But the mother is where the one who is voicing all the strength. And to be honest with you, a lot of times that mother will end up influencing the children by her ways. So that's why I was wondering if you all had this. We'll start with you, Victoria.
Well, my mother was a very, very strong woman.
Right.
I never perceived my dad as weak while I was growing up. He was
Okay.
in the home. My
Okay.
parents did divorce later.
Okay.
They separated, they got back together, separated, got back together, and finally divorced. But by then, I was on my way out of the home. And it was
Okay.
at that point that I began to see different sides of my father. I
All
never
right.
saw him as a weak man.
All right.
I don't know that other people did. Perhaps they did. No one ever shared that with me. But
Okay.
my mom, being the strong person that she was, she did overshadow,
Yeah.
in those latter years when we were growing up.
Yeah.
She did overshadow, and
Yeah.
she was more of an influencer than he was. But
Right.
just like Cece said, I learned later to forgive those flaws that I
Yeah.
saw in
Yeah.
him because he was just a man. He
Yeah.
was just a man. He was the best dad that he knew to be at that time. He was
Right.
the best husband that he knew to be. He went on
Right.
to get married again multiple times
Right.
and all
Right.
of that. But my dad was still always the strong man to me. Now, I lost him in 1991. Unfortunately, he was the victim of a violent crime. And so that's how
Okay.
I lost him.
Okay.
But I remember writing a letter years later to him
Mm-hmm.
to say, hey, I forgive you.
Awesome. Awesome.
For leaving me. I
Yeah.
forgive you for leaving me in my 20s when I was a young woman and I
Right.
needed you. I forgive you for not being available sometimes when I needed to talk to you, when I needed a man's opinion and you
Mm.
weren't there.
Mm.
He was always and still always is my dad, the love of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
But
that's it. That's it.
my mom, yes, to answer your question, my mom was the greater influencer later after my
Mm.
dad. I never saw him diminished in my eyes. We did have some disagreements, but he was
Yeah.
always my dad. I don't know how other people may have felt. No one ever
Yeah.
shared those things with
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But
Awesome. That's good
yeah, still
stuff.
dad,
That's good
still
heartfelt.
dad.
Yeah. P Coffee. What about you?
Man, no, man, I can't do. I can't keep sitting up here having these chats and stuff. I'm emotional, I'm trying to hold it together over here. Um, man, man, my dad's scenario was unique because of his handicaps.
Okay.
So my mom ended up in the role that she didn't want to be in.
Okay.
So her being in charge and things like that were because of the scenario with my dad, unfortunately,
Okay.
with him being handicapped. So I think on the other hand, my dad started just letting her have her way. It was like, you know what? I don't even want to fight with her. I'm just letting her have her way. So my mom became even more bossier because my dad would just give in because he didn't want to
Yeah.
go through the arguments my dad used to just be like, you know what? Let me just keep the peace. Okay, Cynthia, you got it. Whatever.
Yeah.
So he kind of was like he was like the peace person in our household to where he was like, in order to keep the peace, I want to make sure your mama just happy because he felt he told us a couple years ago that he felt inadequate because he ended up getting handicapped. So he always felt that void to where he felt like he couldn't give my mom everything he intended to when they got married, when they had their family and stuff like that. So he always had that, that part of him that felt like he failed my mom in a way, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yes. Yeah.
So a lot of times he just let her have her way because he felt like that.
Right.
So, and then my mom became real bossy, and then she and then it kind of trickled down to me because I'm the oldest, and then I got all these younger siblings behind me who look to me to guide, to lead, to instruct, to tell them what to do and stuff like that. So it kind of trickled down to me. But the one thing I learned from my dad, kind of not necessarily being combative with my mom, was
Mm-hmm.
how to be a peace person and kind of like just go ahead and just surrender the right flag, even if it's something that I feel like I'm right on or something like that. I learned how to go ahead and just surrender the flag and not keep, long dysfunctions or arguments or stuff like that going, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So you
Yeah.
know
See,
that, and
that's the
so
thing
I'm gonna say this, but I don't want you guys to take this at all personal. It's
oh
just
Lord.
I'm gonna give you my opinion.
Here we go.
You know what's
Oh, Jesus.
amazing is I listen to every last one of you all's story, but each of you all look just like your story, and you project just as your stories. Perfect example, Victoria. Um, the caveat with her was she had enough time with her father, enough to form the things that she needed and to recognize what she lacked, right? It wasn't like she didn't have him or she lost him maybe when she was 5 or 7 and she only heard what her mother told her, right? She was
Mhm.
able to form the opinion, but the major part was it's very humbling for a woman to be able, I mean, it shows great humility for a woman to be able to say, listen, I miss this particular role that you were to play in my life. You know,
Mhm.
it's a lot because now we live in a day and time where it's
Mhm.
Iron Woman, like they say, Alpha Woman, and I don't need you, I don't care, and it's an amazing thing to see women still recognize
Right. Yeah.
the wealth and power of what a man brings to their life. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
So I can
absolutely.
see her balance. Now, P Coffee on tonight.
Oh, Jesus.
All right, let's shift the gears a little bit. No, here's the thing. P Coffee almost has, I would say, I would give P Coffee a 70-30 blend of the two, her parents. I'm going to tell you why. Although, just like she depicted about her dad, but I can see the strength. The reason why I asked the question about the mothers is because the mother's role, where the dad lacks, whoever is the stronger person is how the woman comes out being. And Pete Coffee, while she has a great compassion and understanding, and she seems to, when I talk to her, she seems to always be having that open ear to understanding men. Even though she had a man in her life, her brothers, but she always is constantly listening for that next lesson, right? So that tells me she got more from mom, from the strength side of it. And she's very stubborn. You can see this. She'll fight anybody. But anyway, woo, stubborn on tonight. But anyway, no. So that's
Reverend
that. You know.
Dixon.
No, anyway. So listen, all right.
I'm
But
appalled.
I think she means well. D, now on tonight. All right, D, it's time to get baptized. No, I'm saying, okay. No, listen. D D is very open. Not one thing I said tonight has she's tried to refute or battle or none of that. You know where that comes from? She, even in her older age, she has said in her mind, I would have loved this experience from the male man responsible for bringing me here into this earth. And so when you meet a person like that, she almost adorns the if a man is speaking life of any kind into her, she's like, speak it, because I really wish I had that. You understand what I'm saying? And you can see it. You can see it all over. She's just like, she is, like you said, we can't change life in the hands we were dealt in terms of things, whether we have our parents, whether they leave. But nonetheless, it's purpose for all of it, right? And so you had influences where they were needed to help you. You understand what I'm saying? And so, and to this day, I believe to this day you were I'm sure you got your story, your some war stories of some men that maybe tried to pull some wool, but it comes with the territory. Unfortunately, when women are quote unquote vulnerable without a dad, just as they are in the world today, when women are vulnerable and no covering, you're susceptible to all types of weather changes in different types of men. It happens, right? And so, and
Thing
so,
about me,
yeah,
Charles, is I'm almost, I don't know if this nature nurture, I'm almost a man advocate, a
yeah,
man's advocate.
yeah,
I was telling somebody the other day, I've never ever in my life said that men are dogs. Never.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Um, now I don't like foolishness in men. I can
Okay.
I
All
can put
right.
that on. I know how to deal with that.
Right. I know
But
that's right.
men, I feel like I'm a man's advocate now, and I'm not man crazy, and I've never been man crazy. But I
Right.
respect a
The
man's
place of a
place,
man, the place. Awesome. Awesome. Yeah.
and when they are on the right track.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let me interject here on this evening,
Oh,
Mr.
Oh,
Dixon.
glory.
here
On
we
this
go.
evening, none of us have refuted anything you said this evening, sir. Just
Yeah.
for the record, okay?
Okay. Jeez.
Just for the
Yeah.
record. So
But
now
you know
it's your
what?
turn. Now it's your turn to
That's right.
analyze
Stand up for
CC.
all of
It's
us.
your turn to analyze CC,
Yes, thank you. Let me
Let's
finish.
see.
You told me this was my show, right? Now come
Yes,
on.
sir. Yes,
Now
sir.
listen. All right. CC. Now I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna give you my impression of CC.
Oh
Oh,
Lord.
Lord.
CC. Now here's the
I'm
thing,
sorry.
though.
Can I jump in for just a moment, you
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
all? I'll be right back. Yeah, no, I'm just saying I'm getting an alarm
Oh, I'm
on
sorry.
the
Okay, go ahead.
outside because
Okay, go ahead.
I'm
That's
on
fine.
site at work and I'm getting an
No
alarm
problem.
going
No
off.
problem.
So
Go
I
ahead.
need to check that.
No problem.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Sorry, now.
Um, CC has had several influences, but I get the impression on tonight that she's had an
Oh,
even stronger influence by her mother. Because her mother, even though she had these three examples of men in her life, the mom was there all along. And mom has been feeding her ever since to this very day. Now,
you're almost right. You're
yeah,
almost.
so here's the thing.
Almost.
Cece is
Oh,
she's very, I mean, put it like this. I can say this to men. If you don't come with the bag, she gonna take it and run. That's how Cece is. If you don't come with the bag with your bag in line, she gonna say, "Give me that bag. I know where to put it." And so Cece is the type of woman that if you're gonna step to her, you gotta step as correct as possible, because she gonna check you at the door. I can already tell you. And so here's the flip side, Cece. Sometimes being very strong to some men, um, most of us are taught, oh, it ain't nothing but something soft on the inside anyway. That's why she being all like that on the outside, right? That's what we think. We think that we just need to get to that one little cherry button and you'll be all right and you'll turn to blossoms. So the
right. You want
ideal
to.
the ideal the ideal way to come across, um, in some cases, when women can't help. I mean, women are strong and they exude strength because they're doing strong things. That's why. But the magic to it is to be strong, but be like the branches of the beautiful flowers. Be strong, but show the flowers of the softness. When you show the flowers, when you're strong, but you show the flowers of the softness, it's a perfect storm for a man. He's like, wow, she's strong, but she's vulnerable. She can hold her own, but she don't mind embracing me. And I know, see, you have to know CC or have had some dialogue and communication with her to see beyond that. But I can just imagine on the outside, looking and not knowing her, you're probably getting some misconceptions, right? Is that
Yeah,
kind of, yeah,
yeah.
misconceptions.
And the war has been. I was raised by my grandmother.
Right. Okay.
Um,
Okay.
After I got violated at 15 and had my son, I stayed with my grandmother through my high school days,
Got you.
and she was saved. Now, my
Yes.
mom was married. Her last husband, third husband, second husband, third man is the man she's married to now.
Mm.
He's AME pastor, but my grandmother was the one who taught me not to be like my mom. My mom is very aggressive, and I tell people this all the time. My vulnerable spot is that I daily strive not to be like my mom.
Mm.
I love my mom, and
Yeah.
we have a great relationship. I talk to her 3 times a day because if I don't answer the phone, she's gonna call somebody and tell them to come over here and check on me.
Oh
And
Right.
she
Lord.
don't even live in Jacksonville.
That's
But
bossy.
yes, and I strive not to be bossy, and because I'm multifaceted, multi-gifted, multi-talented, a lot of
Mm.
men think that I'm this superwoman that needs a superman. When I come home, I don't want to talk to people. I want to chill, give me a glass of wine, watch something crazy on TV with my kids, and kick it. And a lot of people
Yeah.
think I'm at home running around like a Tasmanian devil. No, I ain't. My
Yeah.
house stays in order because my kids know the rules and follow
Right.
them.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't like that persona that people take.
Yeah.
So if I have an
The
opinion,
misimpression. That
automatically
misimpression.
they
Yeah.
think that my giving them advice or having an opinion
Yeah.
about something is being aggressive. I had somebody tell me this last week. This is so stupid, and I hung my phone up. I told him, I said, call me when you're ready to act like a grown up. Because my patience is short. I have very limited time for foolishness. And I
Okay.
was talking to somebody and we were talking about the clergy collar.
Okay.
And the man in the conversation was so busy trying to impress me with his knowledge. I was like, I don't give a damn. Excuse me, I don't care. But at the end of the day, he was trying to push the envelope of impression, and I was like, that don't matter to me. So it ended up the conversation. I had to literally say, I said, so you're mad at me because I pointed out your flaws? That's something you're not used to? Well, it's just the way you said it. I said, that ain't some old punk mess. I said, do me a favor. Let's do this. Call me when you ready to talk, because at this point, you're angry about something that does not matter, and I'm not capable of continuing this dialogue. So since we've gotten here and you're angry about something that doesn't impact your life or mine, I want you to go process your emotions and call me when you grow up.
Now let me ask you this: was this a person of romantic interest or a friend? Someone trying to, I don't mean romantic. When I say romantic, I mean they're trying to express it towards you.
They were trying to express it towards me.
Okay.
And my point was, hold up, pump your brakes. I was at pump your brakes before he got to trying to impress. Yeah. Because the one thing I don't need in my life, because of what I've seen in my mom, is someone who has anger management issues. I have a rule in my house: you can't scream in here. You can't, if you're gonna be mad and argue, you got to go out in the garage or go stand in the grass. That's because I like a peaceful home. So when people think I have this dominant personality 24/7, no, I don't. I put it on when I need to do work and to get stuff done. Like you say, I'll grab the bag. If you don't know what to do with it, I know what to do with it. Wow. But I'm not just going to let it sit there and dry rot. But someone who misappropriates my emotions or my language, the first thing I think about is, how would my daddy handle this?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm the one to shut the computer down. If you're going to act crazy, I'm going to let you act crazy by yourself.
So here's the thing. I believe the guy responded partially. Now, he may have been out of line. I wasn't there presently. But I believe, just listening to you speak just a second ago, he probably, what he was trying to tell you behind what he was saying was, that's a little aggressive. And you all coming at me like a man. I'm telling you how he's probably thinking. He's probably like, wait. And then when you threw in there about the punk, that's just really
that was the end of the conversation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But to him, yeah, go ahead. But to us, I'm telling you how we do that.
The dialogue took place, but he was so his influence was more to prove himself right than hear the voice of reason that was facts. I had facts. He had an opinion.
You know what I've heard over the years? That the best way to reply to a fool is silence. Sometimes when people
he got mad when I didn't want to say nothing.
No, but listen, it's more important to keep you intact than to check him sometimes. Because sometimes when we step out to check, it shifts us into a different position in a man's eyes. And to be honest with you, this is how in life, this is how abuse starts. When women reposition themselves as the man. Now the man that's weak-minded sometimes, because sometimes abusers they get weak, and when they're weak, they're like, "Oh, you trying to front me like a dude?" Then it becomes an aggressive situation. I'm telling you, because the thing of it is, I say this all the time on the shows. Everybody, it's our responsibility to know our impact on people, and so what you don't realize is you have a presence. You're a tall woman. You speak very confidently, and on top of that, you have a certain resonance in your voice that's kind of commanding. So to a man, automatically, that even may be struggling with any part of his manhood, it's intimidating. So you have to keep that in mind, that somebody will be like, wait, hold on. And so when you see how you looking docile right now, you're like, no, but see how she's smiling and all that. But when you turn around and be like to him, you know what, you little punk. It sounds like it's almost
no,
like
a little punk.
But my point is, and so he a big punk. He a big punk.
Well, the conversation took place over the telephone, and I started out with the soft side of, well, no, that's not exactly how that happened. Right. You can't tell me. I said, well, I can't tell you because I was in the room when the teaching took place. And well, I know I had it, and he told me, and he got really defensive, and I was like, are you mad at me or are you mad at him? Where's this,
Right.
Because I try to reason, but you start screaming, either my phone gonna hang up by itself or I'm a shit. So I
He
noticed,
said my phone
so,
gonna hang up by
and I
itself.
said, yeah, because my mama, if he were talking to my mom, she start cussing and calling you all kind of special names. So I try not to be like her. So I try to pull it back and not and emulate my father. My dad, I am almost 50. I've never heard my father raise his voice ever. Even when he's mad, it's not good when he's mad because it starts with his eyes.
Okay.
And he'll put his hand on his face and then he'll do this.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, he's going to say what he has to say. Now, if you run in your mouth and you don't hear him, it's your fault.
Yeah, but he gonna say it.
Now,
That's
my
it.
mama, she'll be all up here in the ceiling, jumping off walls, doing
Yeah.
ninja kicks and cussing.
Yeah.
But my dad is like this,
Yeah.
and he'll say it.
Yeah.
I try to be like that because I know that I have my mama in me. So I make sure that I put something in place.
Check yourself. You check yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, and an insecure man, and I've heard Bruce say this. Certain women can't be with him. They can't handle him.
Absolutely. Yeah.
With me, there are some men just don't even try. It's too much work. You gonna get your feelings hurt. I'm gonna have to call Precious, and she gonna have to set up counseling. It's just gonna go a whole other way. Because I'm not capable of nurturing weakness. I can nurture vulnerability, but I can't nurture weak. Because weak is a voluntary position. Insecurities that are just publicly displayed on a constant level, I'm not capable of that. Because I'm not trying to be your mom.
Got you. All right. So Precious, I'm ready to drive this into the depot. Well, I'm going to tell you this. So I'm going to throw out some quick things that I think that are important to just leave in the hearts of the viewers and the ears. So as we turn out, okay. One of the things I'm going to throw out.
Before you take the car and park the car,
I'm going to let you go with butter.
I want to defend my own honor.
Go ahead, girl. Do it.
Mr. Dixon, I want to, refute what you said from a clinical emotional intelligence perspective.
Okay, all right.
I have approximately 57-43 of my parents, sir, of accuracy, sir, on tonight.
All right,
so
okay.
I do have 57% and 43%. So I wanted to make that aware for the viewing audience. The way you said 70-30, it didn't come across well for the viewers. I want to definitely keep the ratings high. So that didn't sound very balanced, sir. I just wanted to refute that for the audience.
All right. Okay, got you. So real quick. One of the biggest mistakes we as men make in life is not understanding the significance of being in our daughters' lives. Because, number one, we instill self-confidence. We kind of bring awareness to body image. It's not because as men ourselves, that's why you'll see men say something like, don't you be doing it. You better care of yourself, eat like this. Don't be doing this, because we're telling you what we see and what we know the struggles are currently in the women around us. So we try to do that. We instill education, how important it is as a woman to be, if at all possible, educated in a tough world that we live in. You know what I'm saying? We talk about career. We try to give you career paths, give you ideas, because knowing in most cases women rely on the advice of the male figure in some cases. We also, we talk about romantic relationships. So like that first line of introduction to the male figure. And so we're letting you know, hey, we're men and this is how we operate. This is what typically men don't like. This is what men do like. Be a respectful kind of woman. Carry yourself this way. We kind of load you with those things that kind of help you navigate through life as you grow older. One thing I wanted to make, one important point I wanted to make earlier is this is important for women in that category of, let's just say, mid-30s on up. When you refer to dad, now picture this. Years ago, there was dysfunction. There was infidelity. I mean, old time dysfunction. People had families on the other side of town and all kinds of stuff.
Mhm.
So imagine this: the fortitude of men back then. As this world broadens, the integrity of men thins out. As the world broadens, the more the world grows, the more all these nuances and social media and all these devices of the world make the integrity of men today very thin. And so what I'm saying that to say is you have to be fair when you're making comparisons of the men of old to the men of new. Because if you're looking for a man today, you have to consider he is a thinned version of what my dad was. Because your dad was not exposed. Think about this. Whatever your dad was back then, picture him today and dealing with this stuff today. You know what I'm saying? It's a different monster.
Everybody get with it.
It's a different level of temptation. Just think, if he could cut up and have somebody 20 miles from home, he could have somebody in Guatemala today. Because we can go all over the world in a touch of whatever and just be all over the place. And so it's I mean, men today, you know, again, I'm not giving any men a pass because, you know, we have the fortitude and strength to get our minds right, so to speak. But it is a difficult playground to navigate through today, because it's like with things being the way they are, and you know, you see the result of the thinned man in a lot of the women today. When I look on social media, even as a man, I would be lying if I didn't tell you. Sometimes I scroll through and you may see something that to the man's eye that may look attractive to you, you know, whether it be half dressed or whatever you call it. But the other part of you is just sad because you feel like wow, like have we resorted, like what has happened that we have resorted to making our assets our focal point of everything. Nothing else. Everything is just, it's an asset driven world. Nothing else. It's like, what about her brain? What about what kind of mother she'll be? What about what kind of partner or covering or what kind of mate will she be? Forget that part. It's just what type of body parts that she got and how fast can I use them? That's where we are today. And so it's a sad reality, but you know, so that's why when you're fortunate to meet somebody that halfway wants to do right, you know, they want to do right considering the times that we live in. You got to think, I mean, God can definitely send and prepare the right person for you, because that he knows what D needs, you know, he knows what CC needs. I don't know if he quite figured out P-Coffee, but he's trying. But anyway, so all of those
Yeah, my sister.
Why am I being thrown under the bus? I mean, what did I do to deserve?
No, seriously, God knows the best compliment. That's the awesome thing about it. In the midst of the rainforest that we live in, he knows the exact compliments for our life. That's all we can really hope for, is that he just, you know, he aligns us with those people. And so on that note, I want to thank you guys for being vulnerable tonight, for positioning yourself in situations that I know may not be comfortable. Especially big ups to you, D. You're being tough today. You know, you were the anomaly in the situation, and you handled it very well. I was holding back my questions. I didn't want her to cry. So I was
No crying. See, I had to absolutely.
had me ready to cry.
I know.
I felt a little mist in my face, but I wasn't gonna be no punk now. I wasn't gonna.
You had them red eyelids. I see them. Anyway,
that's okay.
So did.
That's okay. Let the lids be red, but you weren't gonna see no fluid falling. Watch out now. Let the lids be red.
No, but this was awesome. I know Victoria had to go. She had to go, and so you know we'll send her a message too. But Cece, as always, thank you for your eloquent dissertations and clarity that you bring us. She's just like, you know, I'm gonna let y'all know tonight that punk, he can get out of my face. And I'm you did an awesome job. Thank you. And P Coffee, thanks. This was a good idea of a show. You know, this was a good idea. You know.
And I want to say for the record, Dr. Dixon did not want to be compliant with the show ministries, but I took on your mantle, CC. I said, "Listen, Pastor, as the first lady of this church, this is gonna go down. Respectfully, sir, if you don't mind, please, sir, respectfully,
gosh.
But
Now listen, I do want to say one thing before we go,
Okay.
right.
and just all jokes aside.
Okay.
I just want to thank you, P Coffee, as my sister, my friend, my homegirl, the person I can cuss out and still love, who can cuss me out and still love me. I'm so thankful that you're sensitive to the
Yeah.
time when it comes
Yeah.
down to these subject matter discussions. Weekly, I can't always be with you, but I do get a chance to tune in sometimes, and I'll be holding the phone. People like, what you doing? Mind your business. But I'm thankful that you are sensitive to the times, because we're living in an age where I'm trying to retrain the male presence so that they don't feel so beat down, so worn out. I'm teaching young men to respect women by starting with the respect they have for themselves.
Right.
If there was some kind of legal way for us to even bring on teenagers to show them this is what you need to see and
Right.
emulate, because there are some good people out there who have good, honest life opinions and
Right.
experiences. And the dynamic even tonight was very broad
It was good.
when it comes down to who the guests were. But it takes a keen sense of discernment. I just want to applaud you and honor
Yeah.
you for that, because sometimes people have these shows and I'm like, why do you even have a phone? Because
Right.
they don't know how to discern people and times. But you always put together a good group. There's never been a group that I question, because if it's raggedy, I'm gonna call you and say, you all right? You need some medicine? But you've always done a great job of marrying up the right people for segments, and I just want to appreciate you for that.
Yes.
Thank
Good
you,
job.
man.
Good
Thank
job,
you.
people.
Because
We
Mr.
want to.
Dixon,
We want to.
Mr. Dixon ain't gonna do it.
Right.
He ain't gonna give me no
Yeah.
food.
We thank you guys. We thank you guys. She did do a good job.
Carrot is the feminine version
Pretty much
of
all the
Charles,
time.
so I
No,
had to do it because he ain't
I
gonna
know.
do it.
He
I
ain't gonna
know.
do it. He ain't gonna
I
do
tell
right.
you. I tell you. All right. Well, everybody out there, we thank you all for tuning in. Who?
Oh,
We say D?
absolutely, D. Absolutely.
What did D
Thank
say?
you for being here. She said thanks for having her on.
Yes, D. We had to have you
Yeah,
back again.
absolutely. When you messaged me and you shared your story with me, there was no way we weren't gonna have you on the platform. I shared with Mr. Dixon what you had shared with me, and I was like, we have got to have her to join us for this segment, and that's why we made sure that we talked about fathers and father figures, because there are a lot of people who don't have their fathers, and it is for tragic or challenging reasons. We lost my children's father to heart disease when they were young.
Mm.
So we
Mm.
had that experience of the absent father in our household. And Father's Day was horrible over here, okay? So
Mm.
Yes.
but by the grace of God, we made it through another year. You know how it
Right.
goes when the parent is
Yes.
missing, but and not by his choice, of course. But truthfully, I really appreciate you guys coming on tonight, expressing and sharing. One of the concerns that Mr. Dixon had was, are these women going to be transparent? We were talking about this, and he was like, man, I really hope that we can get some women who will really be vulnerable and really share the duality of who their fathers were as men, not just the highs, but the lows and the in-betweens. And
Yes.
I literally was in prayer for a couple of days, and I was like, please give us the right people to do this so we can really bless people, and continue to add value to them. That's the only reason why we're here, is to continuously add value to people and bring awareness. It's so important. Mr. Dixon, thank you so much for driving the car
Mm-hmm.
tonight and steering everything. And the questions that you had were incredible, and they were spot on as far as what you were looking for, as far as the meat of the subject matter at hand. Kudos
Mm-hmm.
to you, sir. This was a
Thank
great show.
you.
This was a very good show. I really
Thank
enjoyed you
you.
guys. Lady Victoria,
Enjoy.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Cece, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
All
We
right.
really appreciate y'all. Have an incredible night. We'll see you guys same bat time, same bat channel next week. Mr. Dixon will be on Monday nights. You guys tune in to Unique Perspective Love Talks Radio Conversation Room, and we'll be right back here on the hot seat next Tuesday night, same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, peace and blessings. Y'all have an amazing night.
All right. Now you can go fry. Then bye. Take care
All
of
right,
this. All
bye.
right. All right.
Right. Right.